This podcast is brought to you by LOETB Community Education Service.
Most people's story in Móna is pretty similar, especially anyone that spent a long time in the company. I was originally from Bailieborough in Cavan, and when I was a young lad and Móna's name was mentioned, the turf board, I thought it was something to do with horse racing, because there was very little bog up in Cavan anyway, very, very little useful bog. But I came to Móna in 1967, and I retired in early 2017, which is almost 50 years. So I'm nearly as old as the company itself. But when I came first, I was only 15 and a half. There was no free education in Ireland at that time, so companies like Móna and the ESB were valuable for employment and keeping you at home in Ireland. But I suppose, looking back, early impressions of Móna, you'd see the workers there, the dedication and the commitment they had to drawing in peat to keep both the power stations and the briquette factories going in the worst of weather. I mean, the conditions were horrendous at times. And then even in production, you'd see lads coming home and all you'd see was the white of their eyes because the rest of them were covered in peat dust. And the only reason you could see the white of the eyes was because they were wearing dust goggles. That's how bad it was, because most machines hadn't cabs on them. So the peat would be blowing all over the place and into them. But still they were dedicated, they were committed. And I suppose from my point of view, because that kind of started my interest in employee conditions and terms and conditions of employment and stuff like that. I got involved in unions and I got involved as a worker director over the years in Móna, and that. So I suppose that was a big plus. In fact, if I was to look back from a personal level, the greatest honour I ever had was actually being elected to the board of the company as a worker director by the employees. I spent 16 years on the board as a director, and that was 4 elections that I was elected by the employees. And I suppose, as someone once said to me, Pat, you couldn't get, that was really like being getting educated in life, at the University of Life. Because, as I said, when I started out, there was no free education, so it was the tech and nothing else. That's the outlet you had. And if you look at Móna, okay, it's changing now, but it's an absolute iconic company because it educated families, it kept families together, it stopped mass emigration, and it stopped husbands from having to go to England to get work and send money home, that they were able to stay in Ireland and raise their families. And I know times were tough and that, but it did educate their families and send them to university and that. So from that point, and then I'd say there's not a family in the Midlands that hasn't got the Móna DNA in their system, because someone is some relation, whether it's mother, father, or whatever it might be, that worked in Móna. And as was said before there, we talked about the housing schemes that they put together. I mean, it built up communities, Rochford Bridge, Kyle Dove, Lanesborough, Kilcormac, all those areas. I mean, those have all developed because of what Móna brought into it in the first place. And of course, you have to credit the ESB as well, But they're really the abiding memories of the company and that's why I even remember going to a funeral of a pensioner in next Móna worker, and one of the gifts that was brought up at Mass was the Scale na Móna, the local Móna magazine, the in-house magazine. That's how much he looked forward to getting a copy of that magazine every month in retirement, just so as he could catch up with what was going on in the company. And to see that level of, feel for the company and that. And that's in we'll say all the retired people, they all want to know how Móna is getting on. I know most of the characters are all passing away now, and it's sad because there was some brilliant characters,
Is Scale na Móna still being published?
No, Scale na well, that's another story, I suppose. Val Trod was the editor, a brilliant character, a brilliant editor, and considering he was a fitter by trade, but he produced Scale na Móna on his own. and it was a great publication because it told of what Board of Móna were doing as a company and the future plans. It also talked about the past. It reminisced. It kept in contact with pensioners and so on and so forth.
So a copy we could
There is, yeah.
Would you have a copy of
I would, yeah.
So just quickly, Pat, you've then seen it from both sides, you've seen it from the point of view of management within the structure as well as the point of view of the worker as well. So you've seen.
I have.
And not every worker would have had that opportunity.
No.
Did it change your?
Did it change me? No. I suppose if you talk to other people who maybe voted for me in the elections, they might tell you the story. But no, as I said, I was 16 years on the board, and like the elections, like there was fiercely contested elections. I mean, you had it was run on the lines of a general election, exact same as a general election. Everything was the same. And the scale was nearly the same if you take local constituencies.
Taken it seriously?
Or more seriously, because there would be a 90% turnout in voting. 90%. I mean, no election ever has that. The people were very tuned in, the employees were very aware of what was going on, and they would drill you on your campaign. But first of all, like everything else, even in the political scene, you have to be nominated. So in most cases, because this was done under legislation, the Worker Participation Act of 1977, so you were nominated, and the Worker Participation Act would state that in semi-state companies, a third of the board could be elected by the employees. And that would happen every 4 years. So first of all, then you were nominated by more than likely a union, your relevant union. Then you would appoint an election agent. Then you would get a manifesto, and you would draw up your own manifesto stating what your aspirations were for the company and what you had planned or hoped to do for employees when you got on the board. And then you canvassed, and the company would allow you 10 days to canvass all the locations in the company. And that wouldn't be enough because there's so many locations. I think we were operating in something like 18 counties in Ireland. Then you take holidays as well to try and get as much canvassing in as possible. Because we'd have locations starting, we'd say Wexford, right across to Cork, Kerry, up to Limerick, Galway, Mayo, right across the country to Dundalk, Dublin, back down to Tipperary and every Midland county. So
at your own expense or the union's expense?
No, the union, well...
Who paid for your petrol?
Who paid for your petrol? You would get an allowance from the company of so much. Okay, so no, it wouldn't cover you.
They were behind this, they weren't...
No, because it was law. It was legislation. Now, in fairness, some unions supported their candidates because maybe they were, in a better position than other unions, right? But I suppose if you were into the thing, it didn't really matter. You were in this, if you were going to contest, you wanted to get elected, But you then went around, you canvassed all the works, and then, of course, the count then, or the election day, or the count on election day, that was done on a PR basis, the public, or proportional representation. So everything was the same as a general election. It was mirrored exactly the same way. You had a returning officer on the day, the whole lot. So it was, and then, of course, the Bush Telegraph went out that evening with results and how you did, but you were... Scale na Móna would have an article on it, all right, and there's plenty of articles outlining what happened at elections and stuff like that. But you would be totally drained. I mean, you would be just,
It was like a poison chalice, Pat, or were you happy that you had the support of your fellow worker to pursue a mandate?
Yeah, but I suppose I was very lucky when on all the occasions I ran. The people I had in the first election, and there was a 20-year time frame from first to last, over the whole the span of time, that the people I had at my very first election, bar anyone that had retired, were all still with me when I contested the last election. So I was very lucky that I had very loyal and supportive people, because, in any walk of life, you will achieve nothing on your own. It's all about team-based. It's all about, people working with you and you working with them. If anyone thinks they're going to achieve anything on their own, that's the rock they'll perish on, So I was very lucky in that sense. And I mean, I would put it down to some of the people I had, and as Eugene said there, he was one of them as well. But it's not even that, it's the people you could trust. You have to trust people, and you have to, and at the end of the day, it's like at board level, I mean, you talk about decisions, there's 12 persons on the board of Móna. There's only 4 worker directors, so if anything goes to a vote, you've lost. So it's all about building up credibility with the outside directors who are appointed by the government, outside directors, to see, can you influence decisions and explain why you think it should go a certain way. So you have to have rationale. So it's not about saying, I'll do this and I'll do that. It's all about knowing when you can win a fight, or having the rationale that, maybe we should go this way instead of that way. The way I looked at it was, and I mean, the biggest thing in as regards being a member of a board is confidentiality. Because you have to be very careful in relation that you don't damage the company from a commercial point of view. I mean, like, it's a balancing act. So, like, it's not like you're a union representative, because that's a different forum. So if you're on the board, there's a whole lot of other things. You must protect the company at all times and that. But if you see decisions going wrong, that they're going to have a major impact on employees, you have to say, hold on a second, we might have to go that direction, but there's ways of going a longer way around it and minimise the hardship and impact on employees. And what you do then is you'll talk to people behind the scenes, both in management and on the worker side, and without actually saying things, you'll phrase things in a certain way that people say, is he giving us a hint here, or you pick up on something, and you're not breaking confidentiality. So it's anyone knows anything about
said, but nothing.
Correct. If anyone knows anything about politics, it's identical. It's the same thing.
Surely the grounding that you got in Móna must have opened your eyes to what happens on a national level. I was approached by a number of people, or I won't say approached to actually run, but to maybe consider it. But really, no. Like, as I said, I was 16 years on the board. That was enough. There was enough work to be done there, as far as I was concerned, internally, without actually increasing the. And anyway, the wife at home wouldn't have been too happy if we went that line.
This podcast is brought to you by LOETB Community Education Service.